Shara, welcome to the Big Network Regional Futures Conference here in Mackay.
Thanks, Anthony. I've loved being here.
Your topic, Futures of the Cities, really opened our eyes to what our life is going to be like in the not too distant future, I might add.
That's right. We're now at a pace of technological evolution that is happening exponentially, and it's catching a lot of people by surprise because of how quickly it's happening. But this whole idea of technology doubling every 18 to 24 months has been going on for a very, very long time. But because we've had such a relatively low technological base, the pace of change seems pretty slow. Now, here we are with fairly advanced technology and once again doubling in capabilities every 18 to 24 months. And that is what is causing this sudden rush into the future.
Well, everything from drones to robotics, voice recognition, all of those topics that you raised in your presentation here at the big conference. What are you impressed by in terms of our future?
Well, look, ever since I've been a little girl, I've been a science fiction geek. So for me, I'm like a kid in a candy store looking at all of these technologies, and I'm very fortunate to be able to go into the research labs and talk to the people that are designing brand new kinds of robots and discuss with them, how are you going to put it together? What are you thinking about in terms of its functionality and how they are taking inspiration from biological creatures and, in fact, from science fiction shows. It's so funny, but one of the trends that I have seen for a while now is that things like the Star Trek communicator turning into real commercial products. So do you remember the first Motorola StarTAC phone?
Yes.
The flip phones. That was inspired by science fiction. And there is so much that is part of our lives now that has been inspired by great science fiction writers and things that we see in the movies. And it's a lot of fun to watch these things come to life.
We're in a regional part of Queensland. When you look at regional Australia and regions around the world, how will technology help them, do you think?
Well, one of the things that technology can do, especially some of the new transport modes that are being proposed, is make the regions much more accessible. And here I'm thinking about Elon Musk's Hyperloop. And that is a pneumatic tube, basically magnetic levitation, where you've got a near vacuum inside of a tube, and you've got pods that are hurled through it at up to 1,200 kilometers per hour with an average speed of 760 kilometers per hour. And a system like that is priced, let's say, at the price of a train ticket rather than a flight, could truly change the way that people travel in a country. So to give you an example of what that would mean, in the Middle East, they're looking at the testing that's going on right now with Hyperloop. And if it's successful, and it looks like all signs are go so far, they're going to commission a system between Dubai and Abu Dhabi, which is an hour-and-a-half drive. But with the Hyperloop, it will take 12 minutes. So if you can imagine having a transport system like that going up and down the east coast of Australia and snaking along and connecting towns, suddenly towns in places like Mackay become very easily accessible without going through changing multiple flights to get somewhere. You just literally sit in your pod and go from Sydney or Brisbane or one of the other capital cities out to these regional areas. Now, mind you, nobody has proposed that for Australia. This is me as a futurist imagining how a technology like that could actually change life for people in regions, not just here, but around the world. And of course, there's so many other technologies too.
Australia has an abundance of sunlight, especially here in Queensland, and we've seen solar technology come a long way in recent years. What does the future look like for solar energy and its uses?
Well, I find solar energy fascinating from multiple perspectives, and the first is keeping our environment clean. We need to take care of Mama Earth so she can take care of us. And there are a lot of developments that I've seen in the solar space. One that I found really fascinating at the Consumer Electronics Show in January was SolPad, which is a solar panel that is designed for people who are renting or maybe living in an apartment building. So it's a panel, it's light enough for me to pick up, and I'm not a very big person, and you plug it into an electrical outlet outside your house or apartment, and inside you've got a Bluetooth connection, and you can plug appliances into it, and they're being driven directly by solar panel. So suddenly you go from needing to spend a lot of money installing solar panels on your roof, and if you don't own a house, well, then you're out of luck. You don't have access to that kind of clean energy, to a solution which is portable and usable without actually making that big capital investment. And then we go to the other side of massive solar panels, where there's a really interesting startup from Australia called Infratech Technologies that has designed systems of floating solar panels that are able to power regional areas. And they've got one already up and working in Jamestown, South Australia, several hours. I think it's north of Adelaide. I'm trying to remember my geography. Forgive me if I get it wrong, anybody out in that neck of the woods. But the fascinating thing with this is that they've designed it so that it's a combination of water plant and solar panel power plant. And it conserves water, prevents water from evaporating, which is really important in drought areas. And it's about 57% more efficient than traditional solar panels because of having that water there to cool the panel down. So you would think normally, well, the hotter it gets, the more efficient a solar panel would be. It turns out that that's actually not how it works, and that it's actually more efficient if it stays at a particular temperature. So there's some really innovative stuff happening.
Drones, of course, are a big part of our life, and I guess the future with drones is very much there. How will drones change, do you think, how we live in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I think in cities we're going to see drone highways in the sky within a 10-year period. I don't think 5 years. I think it will take a while for the regulatory side of things to actually settle out. And again, there are drones in so many shapes and sizes, Anthony. In the military, they already have drones that are the size of insects, that are surveillance drones, and they look like insects. So if you can imagine having a little, flying bug spy camera sitting on a bookshelf in a corporate boardroom, you'd never know that it was there. And people will need to become aware that these flying cameras in the sky could be anywhere in any shape and any size, all the way to flying cars, something that is totally out of science fiction, but is already being prototyped by a company in China called EHang. They've designed an EHang 184 is what they call it, which is a personal autonomous flying vehicle that can carry up to 220 pounds and has a flight time of about 23 minutes and can go at about 100 kilometers an hour.
That's extraordinary, isn't it? It's the Jetsons all over again, isn't it?
It is, and in fact I actually used a comparison in my talk to the Jetsons in Life in the Future to do a checkpoint about where are we now today to what was imagined in the world of science fiction. And you know what? We're rapidly becoming a world where science fiction is science fact.
And as a futurist, you see things very differently to us because you get to sort of see the exciting work that's being done all around the world where you travel. Are there some aspects of the future that you don't like?
Yes, honestly there are, and that is the continuing erosion of privacy. And, here governments are doing a lot of spying on people, both in Australia and around the world, and I really do worry about that. We're seeing a rise in cybercrime, including identity theft. And with these big information pools that are being collected about each one of us as individuals and about companies and anything else you can think of, there are a lot of threats looming to use that data in inappropriate ways. And it's not just government that's collecting the data, it's the social media networks and applications that we use. And especially in the consumer space, people don't always realize just how much information they're giving away in exchange for something that's free and easy. And sometimes I joke and say we're actually making a deal with the devil. We let you use our data, but you let us use all these cool free goodies. But how is that information about us being used, and what kind of rights do we have to be able to retract things? And the answer is none. And we've got to start opening our eyes to the threat of our privacy being gone, or it will be gone.
Final question. If there's one part of the future that you've seen that really excites you, what is that?
That would be advances in the medical and technology arena, combining med tech with health tech and advanced technologies like brain-machine interfaces, and looking at genetic engineering and stem cells and regenerative medicine. The promise is out there that in the next 20, maybe 30 years, we could live much longer, healthier lives, and that could be a real game changer for so many people. Even things that are being looked at right now, like brain-machine interfaces that help people who are paralyzed and in a wheelchair navigate the wheelchair just with their thoughts. This is becoming a reality today. It's not science fiction. It's actually prototypes and trials that are happening. And when I look at that kind of technology that can make a difference for people at a human level, that's what really tugs at my heart.
Well, thank you for being part of the conference in Mackay, and we look forward to an exciting future through your eyes and what we see around us.
Thanks, Anthony, and thank you, listeners.